Здравствуйте, это интервью с лучшим нашим преподавателем в Ллойдс Колледже, одним из лучших это Рик. И в дальнейшем беседа будет вестись на английском языке. So we'll use plain English,
okay.
But very easy to understand because mine is not so complicated. It's simple pidgin English.
No, your English is very, very good.
Rick, I told my students that you're one of the best in here, and we know that it's actually.
Thank you very much.
And I heard about you from people far outside of the education group.
Thank you.
Including Russian and non-Russian people.
There are many good teachers here, but all of them, everybody. But thank you.
And tell me, what was the motivation? Why did you choose the teaching career? It's actually a hard job.
It is a difficult job, but it's a very rewarding job. And I chose this career because I studied English at university, and I've always been very interested in English. And when I was in the USA, I studied in the USA, and I had some German friends there. And they told me a lot about studying English, and at that time I became very interested in the process of learning another language and possibly becoming a teacher.
And what's your focus on what everyday focus, during your lectures?
Every day we do some listening, some reading, some writing, and some speaking. Of course, the IELTS test includes all four of those. At the start of the class we do some listening, then some reading, and then after that some listening or reading skills where we focus on listening for intonation, or very often answers have extra intonation on them, for example. Then we have a break. After that we have writing. On Monday we do short IELTS writing. On Tuesday we do some summary writing where I ask the students to summarise a short text, and on the IELTS test you don't have to do that, but there is a listening. In the listening test they have summary questions, and in the reading test they also have summary questions, and I think it's a useful skill. It helps students to understand how to look for key words, how to think about different words with the same meaning.
The technique.
Exactly, which is a very important skill for the IELTS test. On Wednesdays we do a long IELTS essay. I know long essays are difficult, but I think we have to do one every week. Thursday again is short IELTS writing, a letter, and on Friday some fairly easy writing because it's the end of the week. After the writing we do either some vocabulary or some grammar, and there's another break for 15 minutes. And at the end of the day, for the last hour, we do a news story. IELTS examiners recommend you look at news stories in newspapers every day, and I try to choose news stories that are useful for the IELTS test. On the IELTS test, the most popular topics are the environment, pollution, crime, travel, technology, and
the most likely to see on the IELTS.
Exactly, and education.
And during the conversation, the same, like speaking,
yes.
They always ask that.
Yeah.
How long have you been teaching for?
I've been teaching for nearly 20 years now.
It's too much.
Yeah, it's good. It's what can I say? I enjoy it. I'm a very, very lucky man. I do recognise that. I'm a very lucky man. I enjoy my job. The students are wonderful. They work hard. They're interesting. They're incredibly intelligent. I'm a lucky man, and I've been teaching
I
for
think that
nearly 20
students,
years.
especially Russians, they are very lucky. You know that you're very beloved by Russian students. They love you. Because of that, your class full of almost Russian-speaking class.
Well, thank you again. Thank you.
Rick, we know that basically these classes they designed for the purpose to pass IELTS test. We assume that people they're already good in English. What's your opinion? Is it more about English improvement? I mean your classes, not just IELTS classes, but your IELTS, general IELTS classes. More about English improvement, or just to get all these abilities and all these if you like tricks, we will talk about tricks later on, but just sharpening the ability to pass it, or what?
It's impossible to pass the IELTS test without having very good English skills and improving your English skills. So that's the main thing that I focus on, improving listening, reading, writing and speaking. However, like you say, there are some little tricks that we can look at, and certainly I look at those as well in the class. And but the main thing that we focus on is improving listening, reading, writing and speaking, because if you don't do that, there's no way you can pass the test. The IELTS test is a very well written test, and although tricks can be used, that's not the main thing that I think teachers should focus on.
So it's combination. All right, we know that according to ESOS, we have only 20. Lucky we can do 20 to 24 hours a week because it's just additional hours. It's just voluntary. You can pick them up, or you can decide not to do that. But just 20 hours. Do you set homework for students?
I don't specifically set homework. However, if students want to do homework, then I will give them questions to do, and I will mark them. Occasionally I have set homework for the whole class, but in the past I did that occasionally, but generally speaking the majority of students didn't do it. So nowadays, if students want homework, I give it to them. If they don't want homework, that's fine. I will mark anything that students want to do at home. If they want to write essays, long essays, short essays, if they want to write CVs, if they want to write diaries, anything, I'm quite happy to mark anything they give me.
All right, and you know that everything is very interesting in dynamics rather than in static, stable situation. Just look backwards 5 years ago and compare the time with now. What's your opinion about the changes in IELTS test, if any happened, and about the students? So look at, because you have experience of 20 years actually in the industry, but let's talk about IELTS students and IELTS test. Do you see any changes in students' attitudes, in students' perception, students' abilities or whatsoever, and IELTS test itself?
I think students are even better than they were 5 years ago. 5 years ago the students were very good. Now I think they're even better. People tend to be very professional, tend to be very serious in the class, and they want to get good scores, and that's great, and that's why I work hard to make sure they get the scores they want and the scores they deserve. The test itself is, unfortunately, I would say, a little bit more difficult than it was 5 years ago.
Which part?
I would say every part is, in my opinion, is a little bit more difficult than it was 5, 6, 7 years ago. They have reshaped, for example, the reading. Part 2 of the reading now is always on a job topic. It is a little bit more difficult than it was before, unfortunately. Yes.
All right. Is it important for students to practice the English outside the classrooms? And what's your suggestions for them?
Yeah, most definitely it is very important for students to practice English as much as possible outside the classroom. They're only in my class for 4 hours a day. They're outside of the class for 20 hours a day, although I recognise they do have to sleep at some stage.
Not in the class.
No, not in the class, no, definitely not. So yes, it's very important for them to practice their English as much as possible outside the classroom. How can they do that? Well, if possible, they need to live with Australian people or people who speak English as a first language. If possible, they need to work with Australian people or people.
It's very important, in my opinion, because it's real Australian life. It's real English.
Definitely.
And better if it's intelligent people, not just working class people. I have nothing against the working class people. I'm a Labour member, but you see, if in terms of improvement of the English probably better than high level than better.
I suppose for the IELTS test does tend to be quite formal, yes, so the formal language is important, yes. What else can they do? Well, join clubs possibly, if they're interested in table tennis, maybe join a table tennis club. Radio, usually recommend ABC radio, or there's a radio station 100.5 FM, which is 100% speaking, and is very good for improving listening skills. They can record themselves, is always a good way of improving speaking by 2%, 3% or 5% quite quickly. Record yourself speaking and then listen to yourself. That will help to improve speaking. Read, I mean obviously join libraries and read books.
I sent, that I've already sent 23,000 academic articles.
Okay.
I can give you actually the database, you can choose from them.
Okay.
And actually you answered my next question, is the last question, tricks. What kind of tricks would you advise? Tricks is in commas, it's just useful hints.
Useful hints, okay. For example, in the listening test, there often are questions on numbers or dates or times, and very often the first thing that is said is not the correct answer. So for example, a question will say, when do you want to meet? And in the text, and the people speaking, people will say, okay, let's meet on Thursday. Oh no, sorry, not Thursday, let's make it Friday. So very, very often the first thing that's said is not the correct answer, particularly for day questions, date questions, time questions, number questions, and other kinds of questions. Telephone numbers, yeah.
Family, spelling of the family name,
yeah.
First name.
Yeah, so that's a common little trick for the listening. For the reading, true, false, not given questions. Students don't like them, and they are difficult questions. Nobody likes them. A lot of students get confused between false and not given. I usually say if you're not sure, maybe false, maybe not given, I usually recommend that you guess false, because generally there are more false answers than not given answers. So that's what I would recommend. So there are various little tricks like that.
What's about writing? Writing is very important.
With writing, I mean, you need good structure. Examiners look at three things. They look at, has the student answered the question? And that's the number one rule. Number two, structure. You need to have good structure. Generally speaking, if it's an agree, disagree type long essay, introduction, agree points, disagree points, and then conclusion. And then point three that examiners check is grammar and vocabulary. So a lot of students get a lower score than they wanted because they focused a bit too much on grammar and vocabulary and not enough on structure and answering the question. So the number one trick I would say really for the writing is make sure you answer the question. I know there's not a lot of time and students want to go quickly, but there's one thing you must do very slowly on the IELTS test, and that's read the question and make sure that you understand 100% what the question is about, and make sure you focus on that when you answer. Unfortunately, a lot of students sometimes write very good essays that are slightly on the wrong topic, and that will reduce the score.
They answers correctly, but wrong questions.
Yeah, the grammar's lovely, the vocabulary is lovely, but if it's on the wrong topic, you're going to lose points.
What's about speaking? Actually, usually Russians are good with speaking, but because it's obvious, our language is closer to European rather than, for example, Japanese. But anyway, any tricks on speaking?
For speaking, body language can help. Use your hands as you're speaking. Eye contact is very important. Is it important to dress smartly for the IELTS test? No, examiners shouldn't mark appearance.
Shouldn't or they won't?
They will not. They're professional people and they will not mark you on your appearance. However, there is a theory that when people dress more smartly, they actually do the test better. Just mentally, it makes them feel that they are
more comfortable,
more comfortable and confident and feeling more professional. And actually, there has been research done that suggests that students who dress smartly for exams get higher scores, and that's not because of the examiners. That's just because of an internal thing with the students. Yeah, a self-esteem, self-confidence thing, perhaps. I don't think you have to wear a tie for the exam, but it's maybe important to dress smart casual, so we say. What else? Again, make sure you answer the question. Don't go off onto other topics, particularly in part 2 of the IELTS speaking test. It's very important to make sure you're on the topic. You don't, again, if you use very good English and talk about something else, you'll lose points. And in the speaking test, fluency is the main thing. Speed, intonation, pronunciation, communication. That's the key thing for the speaking test.
Thank you, Rick. And now you have to go to your basically half Russian class.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.